were staying at the house of
Yes.
a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay.
Convenient place to stay? That is Prince Andrew, the Queen's third child, eighth in line to the throne, trying to justify his visit with Jeffrey Epstein. The Prince also used the interview with the BBC to deny allegations that he had had sex with one of Epstein's young victims. His whole performance was such a PR disaster that he had to step down from royal duties days later, sparking endless rumours. Did second in line to the throne, Prince William, push his uncle out? And will the Prince meet US investigators? And can the royal family survive this scandal, as it survived all the previous ones, including the affairs, adultery, and even the death of Diana, Princess of Wales? Well, these are all the questions we'll be asking our guests, including the Queen's former press secretary, Dickie Arbiter. But first, a quick reminder of the story so far.
The PR crisis that's engulfing the royal family is showing no sign of slowing down after that train wreck interview.
Prince Andrew's attempt to explain his friendship with accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein backfiring.
This interview sparking an immediate firestorm.
Avalanche of backlash.
It was a car crash interview.
He gave the most royally out-of-touch defense we have ever heard.
You were staying at the house of
Yes.
a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay.
The problem was the fact that once he had been convicted,
You stayed with
I stayed with him, and that's the bit that as it were, I kick myself for on a daily basis.
One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts,
Yeah.
has made allegations against you.
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady.
But we can't be certain as to whether or not that's my hand on her, whatever it is, left side.
You think that
Because I have no recollection of that photograph ever being taken.
Wow, I get the feeling that the Prince is actually finished for life as a royal.
British papers reporting this morning that the Queen fired her son.
I have asked Her Majesty if I may step back from public duties for the foreseeable future, and she has given her permission.
My gosh, he has let the royal family down, and he's let the Queen down.
We have never, ever had a story like this. A member of the royal family stepping aside from their official role due to controversy is unprecedented in the modern era.
Prince Andrew would have said, I need to step down, or was he pushed?
Pushed, I think, in a word.
Prince Andrew will be stepping away from all of his 230 charity patronages.
No charity wants to be associated with a guy who appeared to be sucking up to a paedophile.
A British newspaper is reporting the FBI is now looking into how it can interview Britain's Prince Andrew over his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
So thanks to the Prince's interview, what was meant to be damage control has now turned into complete chaos for the royal family.
Chaos? Maybe. But is this the beginning of the end of the royal family, as some suggest? Let's find out with our guest now. And we're very fortunate to have with us once again the Queen's former press secretary, Dickie Arbiter. We also have Marlene Koenig, an historian of Europe's royal households. She joins us from New York. And finally, representing Britain's sometimes ferocious press, it's the gentle-natured Andre Walker. Dickie, I'm going to start with you. And we're going to look back a few years here to a interview you gave in which you warned that Prince Andrew should definitely not do such an interview.
There's been a suggestion that maybe the Duke of York should come out and say something. Alan Dershowitz has done it in the States, but then Alan Dershowitz is a trained lawyer. He's trained to think on his feet. He's trained to talk. And he was giving an interview. I don't think the Duke of York should give an interview. And at the moment, Buckingham Palace are handling it absolutely right.
Up to Dickie then. How did you know that it was going to be such a bad idea even then, Dickie?
I knew it was going to be a bad idea, given the man himself. Prince Andrew is not the brightest bunny on the planet. He's not very good at expressing himself, and if he does it in a sort of bullying manner. And he was certainly the wrong person to speak in front of the cameras, to go for an interview. Well, if he thought it was an exercise in crisis management, all he did was manage a crisis. And my goodness, we've seen rafts of media coverage, not just in the UK, but global coverage on radio, on television, in the newspapers, in magazines. This is just something that will never go away. And who told him to do it? It beggars belief, because I believe he was pushed by his private secretary, and she's been moved sideways.
Now, Dickie, look, he is accused by Virginia Roberts of having sex with her when she was 17 and was allegedly being trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. He is a public figure. He represents the country. Doesn't the British public deserve an answer from him, an account from him?
He is a public figure. The British people do deserve some sort of explanation. He tried to give an explanation, but he mucked it up. And he should, unless you are au fait with how to talk to television interviewers, present yourself on television, you shouldn't do it. Even the best media training in the world wouldn't have helped him on that one.
And which part of the interview did you find the most damaging?
I found it damaging from the beginning to the end. I mean, he made some ridiculous assertions when he said it was convenient to stay at Jeffrey Epstein's house, Jeffrey Epstein being a convicted sex offender. I mean, how stupid can you get to say it is convenient to stay in a criminal's house? Somebody who had been released from jail, having been sent to jail for 18 months, and facing charges.
And he gave the interview at Buckingham Palace. What did the Queen know about it, if anything?
Queen probably knew absolutely nothing about it. There was a lot of speculation that the Queen was told about it. The way Andrew operates is that the Queen was informed, and I say that again, informed that he was doing an interview. She was probably no wiser than anybody else what the subject matter of the interview was until it came to light on that Saturday evening.
And some commentators are saying that because the royal family lost control of the Andrew situation, you know, the interview went ahead, that there's a lack of discipline there, what they call institutional decay. The strong hand of advisors has now sort of given way to the hooray Henrys who just acquiesce to whatever the royals want. Is any of that true?
Well, the biggest problem in Buckingham Palace is that if the principal doesn't tell you they're going to do something, and I go back to my own days with Charles and Diana. Diana used to do some things. I'd read about it in the paper the next day and say, well, why didn't you tell me? Oh, I forgot. And that's the way some members of the royal family operate. Certainly Prince Andrew. He doesn't tell anybody what he's doing, so consequently the communications office were left completely in the dark.
One last question before I open it up to everybody else. Did Prince Andrew decide to step down from royal duties and to separate himself from his 230-odd patronages, or was he forced to, and if so, by whom?
Well, it's a question of did he jump or was he pushed?
That's more succinct, yes.
Yeah, well, he was pushed by the media, and he was jumped on by the Queen and the Prince of Wales that he's got to back off, and back off he has done. And I personally feel there's no way back for him.
Speaking of the media, Andre Walker, some of your contemporaries are calling this the biggest scandal of a generation. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's an unbelievable situation. I mean, here is a man who has proved himself genuinely to be a crass, talentless moron, bleeding off, the British state. I mean, let's just remind ourselves about some of the pathetic excuses he offered. First of all, he claimed, unbelievably, that he never wears a suit when he's in London, despite there being photos of him not wearing a suit. And then he said that he never sweats, which is unbelievable as a claim. And my favourite thing, of course, was when he made the suggestion that he couldn't possibly have been at Tramp's nightclub because he was at Pizza Express, failing to note that nightclubs open far later in the evening than restaurants do. Look, I think it's good that we're rid of this man. I think that we need to be incredibly careful and extremely forensic in our questioning of his actions, not least because he appears to be phenomenally wealthy, having really quite a small income, apparently around being worth £57 million, but only having an income of £270,000. And it's all the usual story that we hear with the talentless children of famous people, whether that be Mark Thatcher, Hunter Biden, or Prince Andrew, hanging around with Azerbaijan, hanging around with Arab royal families, friends with the oil and gas industry, dodgy as sin.
Marlena, you're a royal historian over in the United States, watching the royal family very closely. You were even at Prince Harry's wedding, covering it there for a number of media organisations. Some of your photographs here on display. What did you make of the interview?
Oh my God, what was he thinking, if he's capable of thinking? I mean, it was an interview full of his sense of entitlement. There was no remorse, no empathy for the alleged victims. I mean, I agree with what Alex and Dickie have said, is that it was just not carefully thought out. He puts himself first, and I think he's done a great disservice to the British royal family.
And there is a huge audience for the UK royal family in the United States. They appear to be a very big draw on many of the US networks. Has he done damage to the reputation in the United States of the royal family?
Well, I think not to the royal family per se. The royal, people are usually interested in the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, and of course the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, because the Duchess of Sussex is American, and the Queen. The average American isn't going to know about Princess Anne. They're not going to know about Princess Alexandra, the Duke of Kent, things like that, because the focus is really on the younger royals. But to be honest, there have been a lot of coverage in the United States about Andrew's interview.
Well, let me point you to some of it. If people like the Crown's Robert Lacey, the advisor to the Crown TV series, says that it's the equivalent of Charles I being executed in the modern day when you're deroyaled. It sounds to me like overkill, because he's not actually the monarch, he's actually just eighth in line. Why is it so important?
Well, the fact that he is the second son of the sovereign, and he did carry out and represented the crown and the United Kingdom on many occasions with a variety of patronages, from military to the ballet. And this is a major thing, to have your son, allegedly your favorite son, be forced to give up what is essentially supposed to be his life's work, but he doesn't do it selflessly. He does it selflessly.
Dickie, there are reports that he wants to do another interview to put things right.
Well, if he does want to do another, I can't believe that he wants to do another interview. With all the flack that came out after the Saturday interview, I wouldn't show my face in public. Is it the end of the royal family? No, it isn't. Are the royal family besmirched by this? No, I don't believe they are. It is one person. And for Robert Lacey to liken it to Charles I being beheaded is absolute nonsense. It's a bit nonsense, a bit like the Crown script.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's just take a moment to look at this photograph here, which apparently shows Prince Andrew with his arm around one of Epstein's alleged victims, Virginia Roberts. And in the background, we see Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's girlfriend, who, it's said, recruited young women and girls for Epstein to abuse. Now, the prince basically said that his main friendship was with Ghislaine, but considering the allegations against her too, is this really any better? What do you think, Dickie?
Well, it doesn't matter whether it's with Ghislaine or Jeffrey Epstein. They're both birds of a feather flock together. About that photograph, in that interview, he said he believes that photograph, and he doesn't deny it's him, but he does question whether that was him with Virginia Roberts Guthrie. Maybe it was a doctored photograph. But he did say in that interview he believed the photograph was taken in an upstairs room, and he's never been there. So how does he know it was an upstairs room if he'd never been there? So, there was a contradiction. I don't think, you can separate the two. Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were one of the same. Yeah. She was procuring for him, and he was doing his dastardly deeds.
Look, the royal family are paid and employed effectively to represent the United Kingdom. I'm very sorry I couldn't avoid a sex offender because he dated a friend of mine. Is not an appropriate response. Prince Andrew's not got a leg to stand on. Now, what happens with this lady, I do not know. I mean, I hope that all of them will cooperate with the American investigators. But my concern really is the future of the United Kingdom. And I think that we want all of them, including Prince Andrew, as far away from the governance of this country as possible.
This whole scandal comes at a time when the royal family appeared to have moved on from the dark days of the 1990s, all the affairs and the death of Princess Di. The marriage of Prince William and Kate, for example, in 2011, and Prince Harry and Meghan 7 years later, made the monarchy look fresh and relatively untarnished, a new beginning and a new generation that were more relatable. The future of the monarchy appeared to be in good hands, but even this new generation has its problems. The British monarchy has been going through something of a renaissance of late. No longer the stuffy and sleazy set of the 90s, now the royal family is modern and positively woke. Central to that revamp is a new generation of royal blood. Heir to the throne, Prince William and his steadfast girlfriend Kate. Their marriage in 2011 sparked adulation across the land. And that's only been renewed with every addition to the family. George, Charlotte, and then little Louis. Even Will's rebellious little brother Harry inspired the mirth of a nation with his antics, famously captured playing a game of strip billiards in Las Vegas, a game he appears to have lost.
We know that if you were one of our friends, you'd be one of the lads.
But sadly, the monarchical makeover has only been partly successful. After a bout of goodwill surrounding the wedding of Harry and his hip American wife, Meghan Markle, the relations seem to have soured. Having initially shared the limelight, the two couples are now rumoured to have suffered a royal rift. Rumours Prince Harry has only encouraged.
We're certainly on different paths at the moment.
Nor have he and Meghan taken kindly to sometimes hostile press coverage, including accusations of hypocrisy after the pair took a series of flights on private jets while warning about the dangers of climate change. In fact, they're now suing several English newspapers, with Harry issuing a fiery statement accusing the press of bullying. To cool off, the couple is taking a 6-week break from royal duties, and rather than spending Christmas with the Queen, they'll be chilling out with Meghan's mum in LA. Of course, this is not quite the nadir of Prince Andrew or even Prince Charles before him, but it is still a far cry from the wholesome foursome the nation had hoped for. Back up to Dickie for a moment. Dickie, has this new generation successfully detached itself from the tarnished reputations of the previous one, or will they not be able to escape the shadow of, Prince Andrew for a start?
You know, scandals come and go, blips come and go. The Queen survived Annus Horribilis. She survived, and the monarchy survived the aftermath of the death of Diana, Princess of Wales. I think we've got to look at this in its context, the Andrew interview. It's a one-off member of the royal family going wild and not telling anybody what he's doing, and he suffered the consequences. The rest of the royal family will continue with what they do extremely well. William and Harry and their respective wives will do what they do extremely well. Harry and Meghan, albeit, have gone for a short break, but they'll be back. They'll be back with a clap of thunder early in the new year. And I believe the monarchy is secure. The institution is secure.
Marlena, would you agree? And is the new generation going to be the generation that revives the royal family?
Absolutely. But it's the new seed being replanted, because it's just to piggyback what Dickie said, is that the royal family has endured scandals of various kinds for hundreds of years. If you go back to before when Victoria was born, her uncles were all, having mistresses and illegitimate children. And this was actually covered by the press of the day. And she said it right. And then, of course, her son, the future Edward VII, like the ladies, each generation has a scandal. But then again, so do many normal families.
Andre, in terms of how they handle the press, very, very important relationship, isn't it? The royal family and the press, very important. Do you think that Harry and Meghan complaining in the way that they have about the coverage of their trip and so on opens them up to being attacked by the press?
Well, you saw it when the Daily Mail or Mail on Sunday followed up after Harry and Meghan made the complaint with another front page about Thomas Markle. Look, rightly or wrongly, Associated Press are not the people to attempt to sue because they buy ink by the barrel load. It's just a very bad idea. Look, most people used to like Prince Harry. I mean, obviously this new rebranded, woke, politically correct, left-wing Prince Harry lecturing us on climate change from his private jet is less popular. I think the problem that we've got, by the way, with the royal family is this. If there were to be an abolition of the monarchy tomorrow and a presidential election, the Queen would probably win. That's not true of Charles. And I think that what we have at the moment is a hugely popular head of state who is the monarch. But I think when we don't have a popular person in that position, then you will potentially see some rot. Now, look, I do not believe that Britain is heading for a republic, and I think the monarchy is in our best interest. But, you know, these guys have to understand that this is not a circus for entitled rich kids. You know, they have to pull the weight or they have to leave.
Well, thank you to all of you for that analysis. I really appreciate it. Dickie, Marlena, and Andre, thank you for that. You know, we've been looking at this from the royal family's perspective, but let's focus for a moment here on the alleged victims. And we're lucky to have back with us the American lawyer Lisa Bloom. And Lisa, you know, two of these women are making accusations against Prince Andrew. Virginia Roberts Giuffre accuses him of having sex with her on 3 separate occasions while she was being trafficked by Epstein.
He knows exactly what he's done, and I hope he comes clean about it.
And Johanna Sjoberg, who accuses the prince of groping her at Epstein's house in New York. And she actually came forward first, and that reportedly inspired Roberts to do the same. Now, you watched the interview, and as someone who represents Epstein's alleged victims, but not these two women, what did you make of it?
The interview showed a complete lack of credibility by Prince Andrew and a complete lack of any kind of compassion for the victims. You know, a few days later, after an outcry, he puts out a written statement, probably written by others, that he does have compassion for the victims. But what he really showed was this longstanding connection and friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and Jeffrey Epstein's alleged procurer and recruiter, Ghislaine Maxwell, which went even into 2019, shockingly. That's clearly where Prince Andrew's affinities lie, even until this year.
Now, Lisa, what is it about these two women's accusations? What evidence have they put forward that makes you believe they are credible accusations?
For Virginia Roberts, I think the most credible evidence is that photograph. There she is with Prince Andrew, his arm around her waist, Ghislaine Maxwell in the background, and she says the photograph was taken by Epstein himself, which it probably was. That really contradicts Prince Andrew's statement that he never met her, he doesn't know her. You know, there he is with her in the photograph.
Yeah, he said it couldn't be proved that the photograph was genuine.
Right. It doesn't look doctored to me. And she maintains, you know, vigorously that it's not doctored. I suppose an analyst could look at it and make that determination, but Prince Andrew could not even say clearly that he believed it was doctored. He merely said other people, you know, may think that it was. He said he wasn't particularly good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and yet I suppose they were close enough that he felt he had to fly out to New York after Epstein was a convicted sex offender to spend 4 days with him to say goodbye. In short, his story just really doesn't add up.
And there was one part where he cast doubt on another part of Virginia's account where she said she danced with him and he sweats funny. Let's have a listen to that.
She was very specific about that night. She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating, and that she went on to have bath, possibly.
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time, because I had suffered what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War when I was shot at. And I simply, it was almost impossible for me to sweat.
If he were ever to give evidence in some sort of investigation, would that challenge stand up?
Sure. If he were in court, he would be entitled to come forward and produce medical evidence that he's unable to sweat. You notice that he was careful, though, that he said it was almost impossible. He doesn't say it was impossible. If it was late, if he was in a nightclub drinking a lot, dancing a lot, if it got warm in there, you know, he doesn't discount the possibility that he was very sweaty. And you have to ask yourself, why would Virginia make up a detail like that? That's the kind of detail that I think adds to credibility. It just seems so odd, and in her case, so memorable.
Now, Prince Andrew says he's willing to help any appropriate law enforcement agency if required. What do you make of that? Some people have said that there are some caveats even within that short sentence.
Well, great. Let's put that into action, Prince Andrew. I appreciate that as a first step. I hope that means that law enforcement will not have to subpoena you. I expect that means that you will fly voluntarily to the United States and sit down with the FBI and answer their questions. Does it also mean that you'll answer questions from the attorneys for the victims, people like me who have a lot of questions for you? Does it mean that you're going to turn over evidence as would be customary? Emails, texts, calendars, journals, travel logs? Does it mean that you're going to have your staff also submit to questions because those who travel with him have eyes and ears and surely they observed a great deal? So the devil is in the details, and we will find out exactly what that means.
I guess we'll see. Lisa Bloom, thank you very much for your contribution to the Nexus today. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. Remember, you can see this and all our previous episodes on our YouTube channel. But for now, goodbye and see you next week.